All right, let's talk about box sizing. So we talked about the box model and the term width. When you give a width to something, what does that exactly mean? And this is really interesting. When you say like a division, I'm giving you a width of 300 pixel. Well, remember we talked about the box model, and the box model had the border, had the padding, and the content area. So for that box, if I set the width to be 200 pixel, is that including the width of the border? Is it including padding? Or is it just talking about what's inside, just the content? And it turns out by default, when you give a width, it's talking about the content. It doesn't include the width of the padding or the width of the border. It's just the content. So again, if I say division with 200 pixel, that means 200 pixels, not including the border and the padding. So the math can become really kind of tricky because imagine you got this image and you look at the image and this box is supposed to be 400 pixel, including padding and maybe a border and everything else. Then do you do the math and say, okay, it seems like the padding is 20 pixels here, maybe 20 pixels here too, but the border is 2 pixel. So the content of my content box is really, do you do the math and then do it? Well, you could, or you can use another CSS element called box sizing border box. So when you say box sizing border box, that means, okay, when I give you a width, that's the whole box, including the border and the padding. So if I say 200 pixels and you put a 2-pixel border and 20 pixels padding, you shrink the content, the size of the content, the width of the content inside my box so that everything including the box is 200 pixel, right? Again, if I just say width, by default, that's the content, not including the padding or the border width. But if you say box sizing border box, that means including the padding. Now the width is that. Now, of course, I just gave width as an example, but you can also do that for the height. So this may be helpful. Now, you don't have to use border box. You can do everything as the content box as the default. But again, just depends on how you think. When you say the width, are you thinking by default the content box, which is not including the padding and the border? Or are you thinking the whole box, including the border and the padding? I tend to think more like the whole thing. So I like to use border box. And you can set that as your default behavior by saying everything inside the body, box sizing border box. You can do that. But again, it's up to you. We just want you to be familiar that there are different ways. And if you don't specify box sizing border box, then by default, it's going to think it's going to use the box sizing content box. Okay?